There's a farm at the edge of Hollow Creek. You know, the type weathered barn, rusted equipment, fields that stretch toward a tree line that looks like broken teeth against the sky, the kind of place that makes city folk feel uneasy, like they've driven too far from civilization and stumbled into something older, something that remembers. The farm belongs to Elijah Crane. Has belonged to the Crane family for 6 generations, though Elijah's the last one left. He's been alone out there for 37 years. Ever since his wife Mary disappeared on Halloween night 1987. The locals don't talk about Elijah much. When they do, it's in hushed tones over coffee at Mabel's diner, with sidelong glances like they're afraid he might hear them from 5 miles away. Strange man, they say, keeps to himself, only comes to town for supplies. But every October, Hollow Creek can't help but notice Elijah Crane, because every October, his pumpkin patch becomes the biggest, most magnificent display of orange perfection you've ever seen. Hundreds of pumpkins. Thousands, maybe. Each one massive, prize-worthy. The kind that wins state fair competitions and gets featured in agricultural magazines. And Elijah never sells a single one. He doesn't set up a patch where families can come pick their own. Doesn't advertise you-pick hours or hayride experiences. The pumpkins just sit there in his field, growing impossibly large, glowing in the autumn sun like captured pieces of fire. On Halloween night, every year without fail, Elijah walks into his patch at exactly midnight. He selects the largest pumpkin, and these things are massive, 300 pounds or more, and he carves it. Not a simple jacko, lantern face, something else, something intricate. Symbols and patterns that seem to move in the candlelight. Then he buries it. Right there in the field. Digs a deep hole with a dedication that would impress a gravedigger, lowers the carved pumpkin into the earth, and fills it back in, smooths the soil, marks it with a small white stone, and then he goes back to his farmhouse and doesn't speak of it to anyone. This has happened every Halloween for 37 years. 37 carved pumpkins buried in that field. 37 white stones arranged in a pattern that, if you looked at it from above, might remind you of something. A constellation, maybe. Or a ritual circle. The older residents of Hollow Creek remember when this started. Remember the whispers. Remember that every Halloween, without fail, someone from town goes missing. Not always the same type of person. Different ages, different backgrounds. The only pattern is the date. Halloween, every single year, since Mary Crane vanished in 1987. But nobody connects these things. Not out loud. Not where anyone might hear. Because rural towns have a way of protecting their secrets, of burying their suspicions as deep as Elijah buries his pumpkins. Until this year. Until 4 teenagers decided they'd had enough of wondering. Until they decided to dig. Jake Morrison was 17 and absolutely certain he was smarter than every adult in Hollow Creek. Which, to be fair, isn't a high bar in a town of 100-200 people where the most exciting event is the annual corn maze. He'd grown up hearing stories about Elijah Crane, the weird farmer, the pumpkin burials, the Halloween disappearances. And unlike his parents' generation, Jake didn't believe in keeping quiet about uncomfortable truths. It's serial killer behavior, he told his friends at lunch 3 days before Halloween. The dude is obviously burying bodies in those pumpkins. Why else would you bury a carved pumpkin? It makes no sense. His girlfriend, Ashley Cooper, rolled her eyes. That's insane. Why would he mark the locations with stones if he was hiding bodies? That's literally the opposite of what a serial killer would do. Maybe he's proud of it, Jake's best friend Marcus Powell suggested. Like a trophy collection, serial killers do that. The 4th member of their group, Sophie Bennett, had been quiet. Sophie was always quiet, the contemplative one, the girl who read horror novels and watched true crime documentaries with genuine analytical interest rather than morbid entertainment. There's something there, she finally said. My grandmother used to talk about the Cranes. Said there was old magic in that family. Old ways. She said Mary Crane didn't disappear. She was taken. Payment for something. Payment? Ashley laughed. This isn't a fairy tale, Soph. No, Sophie agreed. It's worse. Because it's real. That conversation planted the seed. And over the next 3 days, Jake watered it with conspiracy theories, Marcus fertilized it with bravado, and even Ashley's skepticism couldn't prevent it from growing into a plan. Halloween night. Midnight. While Elijah was performing his ritual, because they'd confirmed, through binoculars, that he always started at midnight, they'd sneak into the pumpkin patch from the far side, find the most recent burial, and dig it up. We'll live stream it, Jake said, eyes bright with the prospect of viral fame. This is gonna blow up. We'll be on the news, maybe even get a Netflix documentary. We'll also be trespassing, Ashley pointed out, and potentially destroying evidence if there's actually something wrong.
Then we call the cops, Jake said.
After we get footage. After we prove it.
Sophie didn't say anything. But the night before Halloween, she went to the library and checked out every book they had on local history. She read about the Crane family, about their arrival in 1823, about the legends that followed them, about the year the crops failed everywhere in the county except Craneland, about the year the plague swept through neighboring towns but somehow skipped Hollow Creek entirely. Always a price, the old stories said. Always a harvest. Always a sacrifice. She should have told her friends what she learned. She should have stopped them. But she was 17, and 17 is old enough to be curious and young enough to think you're invincible. So on Halloween night at 11:45 p.m., 4 teenagers met at the edge of Elijah Crane's property, armed with shovels, flashlights, and absolute certainty that they were about to expose a monster. They had no idea how right and how wrong they were. The pumpkin patch at night was different than during the day. During the day, it looked almost whimsical. A sea of orange under blue sky, picture-perfect autumn. But at night, it looked like a graveyard, where the headstones had been replaced with something organic and rotting. The teenagers moved quietly through the field, Jake leading with his phone's camera rolling, Ashley behind him with a flashlight, Marcus carrying the shovels, and Sophie bringing up the rear, her unease growing with every step. The white stones were easy to find. 37 of them, arranged in a spiral pattern that started near the farmhouse and extended deeper into the field. Each stone marked a burial site, each site exactly 6 feet from the next. "That's the newest one," Marcus whispered, pointing to a stone that looked cleaner than the others. The earth around it was still disturbed, not yet settled and overgrown.
Jake knelt beside it, angling his phone camera.
"Okay guys, we're here. This is it. The pumpkin burial site. We're about to find out what Elijah Crane has been hiding for almost 40 years. "Jake, this feels wrong," Ashley said. She was hugging herself despite the mild October night. "Maybe we should just call the sheriff."
"And tell him what? That we broke into private property because we have a hunch? They'd laugh us out of the station. No, we need proof." Marcus started digging. The soil was loose, easy to move. Too easy, like it hadn't been packed down properly, like something underneath was creating air pockets. They hit the pumpkin at about 4 feet down.
"Holy shit!" Jake breathed. "There's actually something here." The pumpkin's carved face grinned up at them in the flashlight beam. Yes. But this wasn't a friendly jack-o'-lantern face. This was something else. The eyes were too detailed, too human. The mouth was opened in what might have been a scream. And carved around the edges were symbols, angular, precise, deliberate. That's really detailed," Ashley said. "That must have taken hours." "Help me get it out," Marcus said, reaching down. "Wait," Sophie started, but Marcus had already grabbed the pumpkin. It was surprisingly light. Too light for its size. Hollow. They lifted it out of the hole and set it on the ground. In the moonlight, the carving seemed to move, shadows dancing across the symbols. The pumpkin's interior was dark, the candle that had once burned inside long extinguished.
Jake aimed his phone camera at the opening. "Okay, moment of truth. Let's see what's inside." He reached in. His hand touched something wet. Warm. Pulsing. What the fuck? He yanked his hand back, and something came with it. A human heart. Still beating, it pulsed in his palm. Arteries and veins dangling like roots. Blood that should have been dried instead running fresh and red. The heart beat once. Twice. 3 times. A steady rhythm that shouldn't exist. Couldn't exist. Was impossible. Ashley screamed. Marcus stumbled backward and fell. Jake dropped the heart back into the pumpkin, staring at his blood-covered hand. And Sophie ran. She ran toward the next white stone. And the next. Dropping to her knees at each one, brushing away the thin layer of soil, seeing what she already knew she'd find. 37 burial sites. 37 carved pumpkins. 37 beating hearts. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, they're all here. Everyone who disappeared." He kept their hearts. He kept them alive somehow. He's been keeping them alive. Behind her, Jake was hyperventilating. Ashley was crying. Marcus was staring at the heart in the pumpkin, watching it beat, beat, beat. And from the farmhouse,
A light turned on. Elijah Crane had heard them.
Elijah Crane walked across his field with the deliberate pace of a man who's done this walk 1,000 times. He carried an old Coleman lantern, its light swinging with each step. He didn't hurry. Didn't run. He knew they couldn't escape. Not now. Not after they'd touched the harvest.
The teenagers huddled together near the excavated pumpkin.
Jake had stopped recording. Ashley was still crying. Marcus had picked up a shovel like he might defend them with it. Sophie stood apart from the others, her eyes fixed on Elijah as he approached. "You shouldn't have dug," Elijah said when he reached them. His voice was rough from disuse, like gravel shifting. He was older than they'd expected, in his 70s probably, but still strong. Farm strong. The kind of strength that comes from decades of hard labor. "You're a murderer," Jake said, trying for brave but landing on terrified. "We found the hearts. We're calling the police. "I'm not a murderer," Elijah interrupted. "I'm a keeper. There's a difference."
"You're insane," Ashley sobbed. "Those are people. People who disappeared. You killed them, and you kept their hearts like some kind of sick trophy." "I didn't kill anyone," Elijah said, and the conviction in his voice made them pause. "I saved them, or tried to. The land takes what it needs. The land has always taken what it needs. My family's bargain with this earth goes back 200 years. Fertility for the fields. Protection for the town. But the price is blood. The price is always blood."
"What are you talking about?" Sophie asked quietly. The only one who didn't sound hysterical. The only one who'd read the old stories. Elijah looked at her. Really looked at her. "You're a Bennett. I can see it in your eyes. Your grandmother knew. The old families all knew. This land was cursed long before we came here. Native burial ground, some say. Others say it's older than that. Something in the soil itself. Something hungry."
He set down his lantern and gestured to his field. "Every year the land demands harvest. Not crops. People. Takes them on Halloween night, when the veil is thins. Been happening since before my family arrived. Used to be random children, travelers, whoever the land could reach. Whole families torn apart. The town was dying."
"So your family made a deal," Sophie said, understanding dawning. "My great-great-great-grandfather made a deal," Elijah confirmed. "He was a witch. Not the fairy tale kind. The real kind. The kind that knows old words and older magic. He made a bargain with whatever lives in this soil. He'd provide the sacrifice. One person, every Halloween, chosen and prepared. And in exchange, the land would prosper, the crops would grow. The town would be protected. But he'd have to keep the hearts. Preserve them, because that's the only way the souls can be released when the debt is finally paid."
"What debt?" Marcus asked. "The original sin. Whatever was done to this land to make it hungry in the first place. When enough hearts have been gathered, when the spiral is complete, the debt can be settled. The land can be healed, the dead can be freed."
"How many?" Sophie asked. "How many hearts do you need?"
Elijah was quiet for a long moment. 49. 7 times 7. I'm at 37. I have 12 years left."
"You're going to kill 12 more people?" Jake's voice cracked. "The land is going to take 12 more people," Elijah corrected. "With or without me. With me, at least they're chosen carefully. People who are sick. Suffering.
People who are ready to let go. And I keep their hearts safe. Keep them preserved. Keep them beating until the debt is paid and they can finally rest." "That's insane," Ashley said. "That's not how anything works. Hearts don't beat outside bodies. Magic isn't real."
"You're just a serial killer with a good story." Elijah bent down and picked up the heart from the pumpkin. It beat in his weathered hands, steady and strong. "Tell me this isn't real. Tell me you're not seeing this." They couldn't. Because they were seeing it. All of them.
"My wife was the first," Elijah said softly. "Mary. The land took her the night I refused to provide someone else. I thought I could break the cycle. Thought I could stop the harvest. But you can't negotiate with the land.
You can only honor the bargain, or watch everyone you love be consumed."
He placed the heart back in the pumpkin, gently, like tucking a child into bed. "I've spent 37 years trying to end this curse. 37 hearts preserved, 37 people, who gave their lives so Hollow Creek could prosper. And now you've disturbed the spiral, touched the hearts, broken the pattern. What does that mean? Sophie asked, though she already knew. Had read about rituals and circles and the importance of completion. It means, Elijah said, looking at them with something like pity, the land is going to take 4 this year instead of 1. It means you've made yourselves part of the harvest. The teenagers ran. Of course they ran. That's what teenagers do when confronted with impossible horror. They run, they scream, they try to escape into a rational world that no longer exists for them. They made it to the edge of the property before they realized something was wrong. The fence they'd climbed over to get in? Gone. Just open field stretching toward the tree line. The road where they'd parked Jake's car? Vanished. Nothing but pumpkin patch in every direction, extending impossibly far, like the property had expanded to fill the entire world. What the fuck is happening? Marcus screamed. Where's the road? Where's the road? They tried running in different directions. Found the same thing every time. Pumpkins. Fields. And in the distance. Always in the distance. Elijah Crane's farmhouse. Its single light burning like a malevolent eye. After an hour of running, or maybe it was minutes, time felt wrong here. They collapsed in exhaustion near a cluster of particularly large pumpkins. This isn't real, Ashley kept saying. This is shock. We're in shock. This isn't real. But Sophie was looking at the pumpkins around them. Really looking. And she saw what she should have seen immediately. The pumpkins had faces carved into them. Fresh faces. Still dripping with pulp. And the faces looked familiar. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, look at them. The others looked, and saw their own faces staring back from the pumpkins. Jake's angular features. Ashley's delicate bone structure. Marcus's broad nose and strong jaw. Sophie's wide eyes. He's already carved us, Jake said numbly. We're already dead. No, Sophie said, thinking. No, we're not dead. We're chosen. There's a difference. Elijah said the land takes people on Halloween night. It's still Halloween. We're in the between space. The moment before the harvest. How do you know? Ashley asked. Because our hearts are still in our chests, Sophie said, pressing her hand to her sternum, feeling the rapid beat. We're not dead yet. Which means there might be a way out. What way? Marcus demanded. There's no exit. The land has us. The land has us because we broke the pattern, Sophie said, her mind racing through everything she'd read. Every folklore tale. Every legend. Elijah said we disturbed the spiral. The ritual was incomplete when we dug up that heart. We introduced chaos into the order. So? Jake asked. So maybe we can complete it differently. Maybe we can redirect the harvest. How? Ashley asked. Sophie stood up, looking toward the distant farmhouse. We give the land what it wants, but we choose how. We choose the terms. She started walking. The others followed. Because what else could they do? They walked through the endless pumpkin patch, past their own carved faces, past symbols they didn't understand, until they reached the spiral of white stones. 37 stones, 37 hearts, and 4 empty spaces where the next stones should go. He prepared these for us, Sophie said. Our graves are already dug, metaphysically anyway. The land has already marked us for harvest. I don't want to die, Ashley sobbed. I don't want to die. Maybe we don't have to, Sophie said. Not all of us. She looked at her friends, at Jake, with his phone still clutched in his hand, at Marcus with his shovel, at Ashley with her terror. 3 people she'd known since elementary school. 3 people who'd followed Jake's stupid plan without thinking it through. And she realized something. The land didn't care who it took. It cared about the number, the pattern, completion of the ritual. 4 spaces. 4 hearts. But what if... There's another way, Sophie said slowly. The land needs 4 hearts to balance what we broke. But it doesn't need 4 of us. What are you talking about? Jake asked. Elijah, Sophie said. He's been doing this for 37 years. He's maintained the ritual. But he's also part of it. His wife was the first. He's been living on borrowed time, kept alive by the same magic that keeps those hearts beating. If we break his connection to the ritual, if we stop the keeper, the harvest ends, Marcus said, understanding. Or changes, Sophie said. Maybe it takes him instead of us. Maybe it takes the one who's been feeding it all these years. That's murder, Ashley said. We can't just kill him.
He was gonna let us die, Jake shouted. He said we're part of the harvest now. He's not innocent. He's trapped, Sophie said. Just like we are. Just like everyone in this town has been trapped for 200 years. But maybe that's how we end it. Not by running, by breaking the cycle completely. She picked up one of the shovels, felt its weight, looked at the farmhouse in the distance. I'm going to offer the land a different bargain, she said, and you three are going to help me. They found Elijah in his farmhouse, sitting at a kitchen table that probably dated back to the 1800s. He was carving another pumpkin. Their pumpkins, Sophie realized, preparing them for burial. He didn't look up when they entered. I was wondering how long it would take you to figure it out, he said calmly. The Bennett girl. Your grandmother would be proud. She always said your family had the sight. You knew we'd come, Sophie said. I knew you'd try something. Young people always think they can outsmart old magic. Usually, they die trying. He continued carving, the knife moving with practiced precision. But you're here to make an offer, aren't you? To bargain for your lives. I'm here to end this, Sophie said. To break the cycle. Can't be done, Elijah said. I've tried for 37 years. The land always wins. The harvest always comes. Because you kept feeding it, Sophie said. You gave it what it wanted. But what if we give it something it doesn't expect? What if we give it the keeper? Elijah's hands stilled. For the first time, he looked at her. Really looked at her. And in his eyes, she saw something surprising. Relief. You understand, he said softly. You actually understand. You've been waiting for this, Sophie realized. All these years. You've been waiting for someone to figure it out. To set you free. I've been waiting to join Mary, Elijah said. But the ritual wouldn't let me. Couldn't let me. The keeper has to remain until the spiral is complete. That was the bargain. But if someone breaks the bargain, if someone stops the keeper by force, then the debt transfers. The curse transfers. And the old keeper can finally rest. Wait, Jake said. Transfer to who? To whoever breaks the cycle, Elijah said, looking at Sophie. You'd become the new keeper. You'd have to maintain the harvest for the next 12 years. You'd have to choose who lives and dies. You'd have to bury the hearts. You'd have to carry the weight of Hollow Creek's prosperity on your shoulders until the spiral is complete. Sophie felt the weight of his words settle on her like a physical burden. 12 more years. 12 more hearts. 12 more lives taken to save a town. Or, Elijah continued, you can walk away. Let the land take all 4 of you tonight. Let me continue as keeper. In 12 years, the curse ends. The debt is paid. The dead are freed. But you 4 won't be around to see it. That's not a choice, Ashley said. That's extortion. That's the price, Elijah said. There's always a price. Your grandmother knew that, he said to Sophie. The old families all know that. Prosperity isn't free. Safety isn't free. Every blessing has a cost. And usually someone else pays it. Sophie looked at her friends. At Jake. Still thinking about his viral video. About fame. About himself. At Marcus, scared and young and wanting nothing more than to go home. At Ashley, sobbing quietly, trying to hold herself together. And she made a decision that 17-year-olds shouldn't have to make. I'll do it, she said. I'll become keeper. But not for 12 years. What do you mean? Elijah asked. You said 7 times 7. 49 hearts. But what if we change the number? What if we change the rules? The land is hungry, but maybe we can satisfy it differently. Bigger sacrifices. Deeper magic. What if instead of 1 heart per year, we give it 1 massive sacrifice? 1 keeper's heart, willingly given, with full knowledge and consent. Elijah went very still. That's not part of the bargain. Because nobody's tried it, Sophie said. You've all been following the old rules. 200 years of the same ritual. But magic evolves. Curses can be adapted. What if a keeper's heart, given freely, is worth more than decades of forced sacrifices? It would kill you instantly, Elijah said. I know, Sophie said. But it would save them. And it would end this. Truly end it. No more keepers. No more harvests. No more hearts buried in pumpkin patches. Just an ending. The kitchen fell silent. Outside, the impossible pumpkin patch stretched into infinity. Inside,
4 teenagers and 1 old man stood at the crossroads of a choice that would define everything. "Sophie, no," Ashley said. "You can't."
"We'll find another way." "There is no other way," Sophie said, "and I'm tired of people dying for a town that doesn't even know why it prospers. I'm tired of old magic and older sins. I'm tired of sacrifices made in the dark that nobody talks about in the light."
She turned to Elijah. "Tell me how to do it. Tell me how to give my heart to the land willingly." And in that moment, somewhere deep in the earth beneath Hollow Creek, something ancient and hungry stirred, sensing change, sensing possibility, sensing, perhaps for the first time in 2 centuries, a willing offering. The harvest was about to change forever.
This is where I'm supposed to tell you that Sophie sacrificed herself. That she gave her heart to the land and broke the curse. That her 3 friends went home traumatized but alive. That Elijah Crane was finally released from his burden and reunited with his beloved Mary in whatever afterlife awaits old farmers and their stolen wives. That would be a satisfying ending. Noble. Tragic. The kind of story that gets adapted into prestige horror films with A24 in the opening credits. But that's not what happened. Because when Sophie reached for the ritual knife, when she prepared to cut out her own beating heart and bury it in the soil, the land spoke. Not in words. In feelings. In understanding that flooded through her mind like dark water. The land showed her the truth. There was no curse. There had never been a curse. There was only hunger. Original, endless, indifferent hunger. The earth itself, this patch of soil where something terrible had happened millennia ago, had developed a taste for human life force. For the electrical impulse of a beating heart. For consciousness slowly fading into darkness. And 200 years ago, Elijah's ancestor hadn't made a bargain to save the town. He'd created the hunger, focused it, directed it at it, so carefully, so precisely, that it became dependent on the ritual. Like training an animal to beg instead of hunt. The Crane family hadn't been protecting Hollow Creek from a curse. They'd been perpetuating it. Generation after generation. Keeping their land prosperous while their neighbors struggled. Making themselves indispensable. Making themselves powerful. And Elijah? He wasn't a tragic figure maintaining an old bargain. He was baiting. The hook. The lure that would draw in the next generation of keepers. Because when Sophie took the knife, when she agreed to sacrifice herself, she would have bound herself to the land, just like Elijah. Would have become the next feeder, the next farmer of human hearts. Sophie saw all of this in the instant before the knife touched her skin. And she did something none of the previous keepers had ever considered. She laughed. "No," she said simply, and dropped the knife. "No?" Elijah stood up, alarmed. "You can't refuse now. The ritual has started. The land has accepted your offer. If you don't complete it." "Then what?" Sophie asked. "The land takes all 4 of us? Fine, let it try." She walked to the door, opened it, looked out at the endless pumpkin patch, at the 37 white stones, at the carved faces that wore her features and her friends' features. "I refuse," she said loudly, to the soil and the night and the hunger beneath. "I refuse to be your keeper. I refuse to be your sacrifice. I refuse to play this game anymore. Find your own food." And walked into the darkness. Jake, Marcus, and Ashley, too shocked to argue, followed her. Elijah Crane stood in his doorway, watching them go, and then, slowly, he began to smile. Not a kind smile. Not a relieved smile. A hungry smile. 41, he said to no one. 41 more years. Because when they leave, the land will follow. The hunger will follow. And wherever they go, whatever town they settle in, the harvest will begin again. He returned to his carving. Another pumpkin. Another face. But this time, he carved something different into the forehead. A single word in an ancient language. Seed. Because Sophie was wrong about one thing. The land didn't need to take them. It just needed them to leave. To spread. To plant the hunger in new soil, new towns, new communities. The Crane family's prosperity wasn't about maintaining a curse. It was about spreading it. And now, 4 teenagers carried that seed within them, in their hearts that had been touched by the harvest. In their blood that had walked the liminal space between worlds. In their memories that would never fully fade.
41 years from now, maybe in 4 different towns, the pumpkin patches would begin to grow. And 41 years from now, new keepers would be needed. But that's a story for another Halloween. Sweet dreams, Hollow Creek. Your prosperity comes at a cost. It always has.